Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White, our Wednesday evening edition. First off, I want to tell you that if you are joining us on our Wednesday evening edition, this is what we want you to do: like, subscribe, and share. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Guess what? It's free. You can catch us on all social media platforms. And you know what we want you to do? We want you to tell your friends about the greatest show on these YouTube streets. We also now will have a QR code. That QR code will allow you to appear on Detroit Black and White and make your comment. So we want you to take advantage of it. Now, what I'm going to do is introduce our esteemed panel, and I'm going to start with the guy that we have named Eastside Al, Mr. Allan Lengel from Deadline Detroit, as well as for Washington Post. Good evening, Allan. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
I'm fine. We also have our guy from downriver, the guy that is straight down the middle most of the time, the former chief of police for the Trenton Police Department, Jim Nardone. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening. Snowing down here. I don't know if it's snowing. Everybody be careful out there.
Yeah. And of course, you have myself, Vanessa Moss, and y'all know who I am. Y'all know what this is. So, good evening. So, we so far we have Dewayla Boy. She said, "Good evening, all. Good evening, Dewayla." I guess
Hey,
we'll get
Dewayla.
right. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
just had to say her name.
Say it.
Dewayla.
He said it right. It's Dewayla, not
Dewayla.
Dwayne.
I can't help it.
So yes. So we're gonna hop right to it. I have a few things that I want to talk about, but we'll take it from the first person that I introduced, Eastside Al. What you want to talk about, Al?
I want to talk a little bit about the a poll that came out by Mitchell Research. It is
That's what I
Mitchell
want to talk
Research.
about.
I think they're a reputable organization. Whoops, excuse me. They're a reputable organization. I think they do a lot of polling for Republicans, but I think they're have a legitimate reputation. So the one poll shows, and who knows, polls, we could see a different poll, but has John James at, I think, 37%, Jocelyn Benson at, I think it was 31%, and then Duggan was way down there at, I can't remember, it was 14 or 17%. Then in the race for Senate, they had hypothetical matchups against three different candidates, and Mike Rogers led each one, not by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're all very close races. So, the question is going to be, I mean, Duggan's going to he'll be able to do full-time spending around the state. He has to spend time around the state. He's low. I mean, if he's not polling better than that come June, July, I think the Democrats are going to go crazy on him and try to force him out. But if he's, picks up, he's got money, he's got time, starting in January. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That's funny that you should mention that, Paul, because I read Deadline Detroit today. You had some good stories in Deadline Detroit. Um, the story with the former governor,
Blanchard.
who uh, basically he takes issue with Mayor Duggan running as an independent. What say you, Jim?
I want to say this. I just have a question for you and Alan and all our viewers. And Jim Blanchard was, he was a good politician, as somebody that I spoke to a couple of days ago said 40 years ago. Well,
Right.
a lot of things have happened since Jim Blanchard won the governorship. But I guess I have a question. And my question is, are they picking candidates right now, or are they just picking sides? So there's a lot more work that needs to be done, and I think it's premature. I know what you're talking about, Alan, about the mayor dropping out, but I think he's going to be fine. I think it's going to bunch right up here when we know who the candidates are. So I don't think he's in trouble. I wouldn't say
he's in trouble.
So I would suggest to everybody that, they're all about a third. I mean, Duggan's 8 to 10 points behind in that poll, right? but and there's what 14% undecided. Is that what it was? There was more than that.
It was like 30%. I think it was like 33% or something like that.
So I think it's going to bunch up.
Yeah, it's a pretty high percentage of undecided. It's 14%. So it's John James 37%, Jocelyn Benson 31%, Duggan 18%, 14% undecided. It's not the Yuga. And then in other matchups with Jocelyn Benson against Mike Cox, she has 33%. Mike Cox has 32%, which is very close.
Yeah.
Certainly within the margin of error. And then Mike Duggan has 19%. So, and then 16% undecided. So it's not, I mean, it's so early on in the race. And I don't underestimate Duggan's ability to politic in the state.
But the question is, go ahead, Vanessa. The question again is, are they picking candidates or are they picking sides? Are they picking Democrats and Republicans? And Doug is going to get what's left over. I guess that's my question.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because when I read the article about Jim Blanchard, there were people who made comments, and some of them made comments like, and I of course am paraphrasing. The comments were like, well, this is a real problem because they're afraid that because he's running as an independent, that means that that's going to continue to fracture the Democratic Party, and therefore you're going to likely have a Republican in office. I don't know, but the comments were quite interesting. There were very few comments in that article that I read that was supportive of him running as an independent. I do think that, I've said this before, I think that his message about people are tired of the same old, I think that resonates with people. But I also think that it's a reach if you think that people are going to do something other than what they've been trained to do, what they've been doing forever.
Programmed.
Exactly. They're just going to pick a side. If you're asking them to do something outside of the ordinary, that's a Herculean task, and you're going to have to do a lot of work in order to get people to say, you know what, I'm not going to circle in the R bubble or the D bubble. I'm going to go over here. That's huge. That is huge. And so I don't think that people should underestimate him, but I don't think that he should overestimate himself. I think he is a very skilled politician, but this is interesting. I think Adolph said it a long time ago. He's like, look, he's a pollster. I've done work for him. He knew that the Democratic Party was not going to support him. So he said, you know what? I want it this bad. I'm going to run as an independent. And I think the time is now. But if you watch what's going on nationally, I don't know, Mike. I don't know, Mike,
Well, I think one of the things that the current poll indicates is that there's party loyalty. I mean, there's party loyalty to the Democrats, and and the same thing on the Republican side. I think what Duggan is going after, and he's not likely to get the MAGA, because the MAGA are like hardcore Republicans. I think we're seeing some Republicans like Dan Gilbert.
Do you think they're hardcore Republicans or they're populist group of MAGAs? I don't look at them as Republicans. I look at them as just what they call themselves.
I look at them as being very loyal to a cult-like figure.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not ideological, but maybe it is just to this one deity that they've chosen. But I think we see Republicans. I think Pete Carmanos has given money. Jeff Sakwa, the former co-chair of the Republican Party in Michigan, is a big backer of Duggan's. So we're seeing moderates. It's pretty evenly split in terms of Democrats. I think the one thing it's interesting that Duggan's going to have to be careful about is not trying too hard to get MAGA voters, because when he was asked, I think it was Chuck Stokes on WXYZ, what he thought about Trump threatening to, that the people, Alyssa Slotkin and the other lawmakers who talked about, you can disobey an order if it's illegal. Duggan was asked about that, about Trump's threats to them, about him, they should be killed or hung for whatever, for treason. And Duggan just responded, I don't want to get involved in that. That's politics. So that's his thing, is like, I don't want to get involved in partisan bickering. But if he's perceived as too much sucking up to Trump, that's not going to play well with Democrats who are, or might cross over or whatever. Not really a crossover. I mean, he's been a Democrat, I think, most of his life, except maybe in college he might have been a young Republican or something.
And to that, I say he's been a politician for most of his life, because at one point he was a Republican and then a Democrat, and now he's an independent. So I'm going to say he's been much of a politician most of his adult life, as opposed to being wedded to anything other than his politics.
Can we take a couple comments, Vanessa?
Yes,
are we ready?
Absolutely.
Because
Go ahead.
David Porter, I think he's right on target when he said they pick in both candidates and sides. Democrats are trying to give the nomination to Benson. Well, they're going to give the nomination to Benson.
Yeah.
Republicans are lost in the wilderness. They do not really think John James can win. I think that's right on. If that's what they think, I agree with them. A couple more comments. G Money Hollywood, good morning to you. Evening. It's evening. It feels like greetings. The polls are so untelling. They may have sampled an area that is majority Republican come up with those numbers. They probably polled only 40 people. Yeah, I don't know. I think this group, Mitchell Research, is a pretty, as Allan said, I thought, we talked about it briefly before the show, that they are more Republican leaning, but
they do a lot.
It's irrelevant. I think they're a decent organization. Sounds like he's chasing the money bag, Ms. Sheila.
Yeah.
Mr. 1213, there are Republicans and there are MAGAs. I think that's right. I think a lot of people are desperate for a candidate, Mr. 1213. I don't even know if they're Republicans, and I would argue that the Republicans didn't get Trump elected; the Democrats got Trump elected. So
I want to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I want to make a comment before you go to. You saying good evening, Tamika Rainey, and I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
I'm so excited about this. Miss Sheila makes a comment that I made. It was this last week. I was talking to one of our viewers. I said, so many of these people are so wedded to politics and not policy. And that has become a huge problem for people, because people are tired of the politics and the politricks. We need to pay attention to policy and people. And they've gotten away from, people have gotten away from that, especially when you're talking about people who say that they are grassroots and they're looking out for the people. People don't believe it. That's one of the reasons why we do have people that are not engaged. They refuse to be engaged because they all think that it's BS. But thanks, Ms. Sheila, for that comment.
Go ahead, Allan, but is that what Duggan is part of the McNamara machine? Is that the way people that are engaged now in this election are looking at Duggan? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Allan.
No, I'm going to say, in terms of people, people pick candidates who they like. They say, I like the way that person talks. I like whatever. Some people go and say, I like this policy or that. But, in the last election, the presidential election, when I interviewed, some people were like, I didn't like Kamala Harris on her transgender stuff. But it's like, really, is that really an important issue in your life? It's an issue that catches on. It's an emotional issue with very little impact, bless you, on people's lives who are talking about it. So they pick little issues that are not really, it's not the economy, it's whatever, it's not healthcare. It can be some silly, I don't want to say silly, the transgender thing was an issue, but it shouldn't be the issue for a lot of people, but they pick things for whatever.
That's something that you said that, because I read something the other day from Joy Reid. Maybe we go to commercial and come back. I want to pick up on the transgender.
And let's not forget all our friends out there. Thank everybody.
So we're going to go to commercial break. We'll come back. And guess what? We got something new in this show. We have a QR code. So the QR code is going to go up, and you guys will be able to just come on into the camera with the rest of the team. All right, Detroit Black and White.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
We're back, Detroit in Black and White, our midweek edition. You have Eastside Al, Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone, and myself, Vanessa Moss. And we have all of you, our co-hosts, our commenters in Detroit Black and White. We're going to get to you, but I want to, before this escapes, before I forget and jump on to something else, something that you said, Allan, was about the, it may not be important, and to some people, but you were talking about the whole transgender, and I'm going to include LGBTQ, that whole group. I saw something the other day. Joy Reid. Did you guys see that
No.
article? She wrote an article and she talked about how the Democratic Party has focused so much on that group that it has lost its way, and a lot of people have turned their backs on the Democratic Party. Do you think that is? Do you guys think that is true?
I think it was an emotional issue, and I think it upset some people. Look, the transgender people are they have every bit, they have the rights, and I think people are like Trump. Trump would run a commercial and it would say, Kamala's for she and them and they, I'm for you. And it was basically saying, like, I'm not for those people. And, just what he talks about, and not to digress a little bit, but he calls the Somalians garbage. They come from a garbage country and they're garbage and stuff like that. We've never heard a leader, who talked like that? Hitler in the 30s, when he talked about the Jews, called them vermin and bacteria and all that kind of stuff. But the transgender thing was a very emotional issue for people. People are scared about things they don't know enough about. And they were able to capitalize on people's bigotry toward the transgender community and trying to minimize them as human beings. That's
I like the comment.
Jim, but my pointed question is this. The commentary was not just about transgender, it's about the whole thing, LGBTQ, the whole group, and how the Democratic Party, they talk about the main part of the party, their focus was so much on that they lost their way. And those people that were really wedded to the Democratic Party, they just got totally turned off. I see one of our viewers said that they agree. So, Jim, what do you say?
So it's perception. And I want to talk a little bit later about perception. I have a couple of different takes on.
You must have listened to the show. You must have listened to the show on Monday when I was on Eric's show, because we talked about perception. Go ahead.
But here's what I think, right? If you know a transgender person, they're just regular people. It's not about transgender. It's about your 8-year-old child, a man walking into the bathroom, right? That's what they took advantage of, right? The Republicans use that to their advantage. I don't believe that prisoners should be able to get a sex change if they've been sentenced to 50 or 75 years in prison. I don't think the taxpayers should be paying for that. I'm not saying there's not a better way, but I think if you know transgender people, I don't think it's a bias. I think people don't understand transgender. And if we could educate people, they would understand exactly what's going on. And I don't think people hate transgenders, hate transgender people. They hate the thought of their 8-year-old granddaughter walking into a bathroom and a guy standing there going to the bathroom in front of them. That's the perception.
There's some issues there, but I think people are fearful of things they don't know. People are fearful of Islam, after 9/11. I mean, it came out, people were like, who are these people? We hate them. We're scared of them and demonizing them. And so, look, the FBI was so far behind the 8 ball when it came to 9/11. They knew so little bit about Islam, about the Arab world, and they had to get educated about it. And it feeds on people's fears. What we don't know is scary to us. I mean, the majority of people aren't exposed to that,
That's exactly right. And yes, I'll just leave it at that, because I have somebody that I know in my life that is transgender, and they're a fine human being, and I wouldn't say anything other than that.
Oh,
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but
An exceptional human being. How's that for an answer?
Right. And I don't think, matter of fact, I know when I read the article, she wasn't saying the article, and I'm saying this because I don't want to misrepresent. The articles was not saying that transgender or the LGBT community are not worthy people or anything like that. I think the point was that they were so focused on that people felt like they were left out, basically.
I agree with that. And I don't think people are as bigoted.
That is what she was saying. She was not saying that they're not worthy or anything like that, because I think that if you talk to most people have someone that's L, a B, a G, a T, a Q, or something, right? And you love them, right? You love them, and they're great people. But you also have to admit there are a lot of people who are familiar, who still don't. You have family members that say, yeah, I love you, but I don't agree that, for example, I don't agree that you should be using the same bathroom as somebody else. There are people in your own family that feels that way about their family members. That is a reality. But the point that I was trying to make is that I was trying to get how you feel, Allan, how you, Jim, feel about the article that Joy Reid wrote about the Democratic Party basically losing their.
And I think it's the activism, Vanessa and Allan and our friends out there. I think it's the perception of the activism, the events, the LGBT events that, exposing young people to young kids to, and I think it's those rare events that people are capitalizing on, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
How about taking some
I think the campaign commercials capitalized on the whole transgender thing. And I think really part of that was, I don't know that Kamala handled it well, but the laws, I think, side with, the obligation to provide medical assistance for transgender, whatever. It's in the law. It wasn't really, but she supported it. And they saw that as, a bread and butter Americana thing of, America doesn't want it. This is too woke. This party's too far left. This party is not focusing on the daily Americans, the farmers, this and that. But
I don't believe the Republicans care any more about transgender people than the Democrats. It's the activism that upsets people. Want to take some of our
well, let me address it. There's a balance between talking about activism, but there's also a balance between saying these people have every right that you have. That,
no doubt. I agree.
And I think that's the problem, is that Trump was trying to denigrate those people, and people love that. He was saying, I'm not for them, I'm for you. Well, who's you?
But you know what, Allan, you say Trump, but we have to realize that his voice resonated with, it wasn't just him. What he said resonated with the people who voted for him. So it wasn't just him. People support that kind of ideology. That's why he's the president of the United States.
But if it's bigotry, do you think not that he appeals to some racists out there? Because
I think he appeals to people who hate themselves, to be honest with you. I
don't think people are as bigoted as the parties make people out to be. I'll just say that. Can we take some points? Transgenderism becomes
Why don't
Go
you
ahead,
explain the QR? Teresa's trying to say. Let me explain real quickly. There's a QR code here in the corner of the screen. If you're interested in appearing, your picture will appear through your phone. If you want to come on the show, Teresa will be screening you, and then you can come on and talk for, I don't know, 5 minutes or whatever, and express your
That's a
opinions.
long time.
Yeah, whatever, a couple minutes or whatever you want to do. But that's why the QR code is there. You take your phone, like anywhere where you get a menu at a restaurant, it'll pop up. You'll be able to be invited. We've never done this before. We're relying on Teresa, who runs the show here, to handle that. So
Okay,
So
Jim,
Eric says, go ahead.
you want to go to some of the comments?
Dahomey and Eric are having a little debate, and they're leaving us out. I don't like it. No, I'm kidding. Duggan will cost Benson the governorship, and she is not worthy of my vote. So how about this? Maybe, have you thought of it this way? Benson will cost Duggan the governorship. I mean, you can look at it either way. Kamala's campaign to not respond to those trans campaign ads are malpractice. They kept dismissing the issue. Most people aren't progressive as we'd like to believe. Mr. Duckett. Thank you, Mr. Duckett.
I agree with that.
Transgenderism became gender change for a while and not binary choice like language preference. Again, there was a comment here. The Republicans capitalized on the I think it was a volleyball player who had a brain injury because she played against a biological male. Those were the things that they focused on, and they worked for them.
Absolutely.
I had no idea how you were surprised. Okay, Hill Harper. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
I was going to say, I think it's a legitimate debate. I mean, I'd like to be educated more on, transgender in sports and all that stuff. I think that's a fair discussion, a fair debate, but it should be done intelligently and with thoughtfulness and not with hate. So
let me ask you this: when you said that there should be a debate, a debate means I'm for it or I'm not for it. Is that's what you're saying?
A discussion certainly, and bringing up the pros and cons and what's legitimate and what's not. I don't know enough about it, but I think it's a concern. And
would you agree that you do know this, that a person can identify as one sex, but how you're built as a person, if you were born a female, there's nothing that you can do to change that DNA, that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You may be able to do something outwardly, but you can't do anything other than that. Do you agree with that? And if you're born a guy, you still have that testosterone, you're still a male. Do you agree with that?
I think that, look, if there's a difference. I mean, if the person still is a male athlete competing, there's a reason why we have the WNBA and the NBA. We still don't have, whether that'll at some point change. But for now, I think we recognize in society that men and women's sports, there's a distinction there. We have the same college athletes, high school sports. We have it, and so I think it's a fair thing to talk about and come to some type of consensus there. But I think it's something that needs to be talked about and not spoken with hatred and anger, but rather an understanding of, is it fair or is it not fair? And it may not be fair, and so let's
Well, Miss Sheila says transgender should compete with transgender. What do you think about that, Jim?
Yeah, well, I think that's the issue. I think the swimmer and the volleyball player and these people that are taking advantage that are number 300 on a swim standings as a male, and they become number one nationally is a bad look.
Is it real competition? That's my question. Are you really competing?
But what about the people that aren't involved in athletics? What about the people that are just living their lives day in and day out as a transgender that aren't bothering another human being? That's where the bigotry and the anger, and Terry McCrimmon talks about the science. We understand the science, and if you talk to somebody that's transgender, not somebody that's out there having dance at the library, somebody that is living that lifestyle, you may understand that they were born in the wrong body, and I think there's examples of that. I don't think people should use it to take advantage of other people, but that's a small group of any group of people, a small group. You know, there are people that feel they were born in the wrong body and they're living in a different lifestyle, right? And they're all over. People are not aware. You see them, and you see transgender people in the grocery store, at the gym, all these places, and a lot of them have grown up, and but they're not bothering anybody, right? They're in the federal government, they're in law enforcement, they're in the post office, they're teaching, and they're not bothering another human being. So who are we to decide how they should live their life, as long as they're not hurting anybody else? And it doesn't matter. And I don't believe that Democrats or Republicans or anybody else, if you explained it to them like that, would really care. I don't think the majority of the citizens in this country are that I'll just say, I won't say bigoted, I'll say biased. There's things we don't understand, like Allan clearly stated.
So what I'm going to ask is that those of you that are joining us in Detroit Black and White, you know what we want you to do: like, subscribe, and share. But we also have this QR code. So if you want to state your opinion or make a comment and you don't want us to read it, you want to say it with your own voice, and you want the words to come out of your mouth, go ahead and do that QR code and come on to Detroit in Black and White. So
can we talk about the homie's point about Hill Harper? Because I don't know if he knows we visited with Hill Harper, and I think that's important.
Times. Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say this to homie. Hill Harper is a brilliant young man that had the potential to be a great candidate. He was led down a terrible path by the wrong people. If not, he maybe should have ran for Congress first instead of the Senate. It's a big step to run for the Senate, but I'm disappointed in how that worked out. Not because I agree with him on, whatever it is, 40 or 50% of the things he believes in, but he's a fine young man, and I'm disappointed that he's been pushed out of the political process because of the people that he was associated with. In my opinion,
I think he should have run for Congress. I think he was trying to bite off too big a piece. That's the problem. John James, he ran for Senate twice and lost, and then he finally settled for Congress. He barely won, but he won, and then he won twice. I think it's interesting too. It's like some people think, and we can talk about this, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. Some people think, he deserves the governorship, and some people think maybe he should have run for the 13th congressional district or as mayor. And some people say, well, he deserves it. He was lieutenant governor. We've had one lieutenant governor in the last 50 years who has won the governorship, and that was William Milliken, who took over for George Romney. That was the only person and we've had a lot of lieutenant governors run, but not win.
But we need people that aren't politicians.
Right.
To go to Washington. That'll change the world.
Let me ask you this, though. The one person who won, he was backed by the party. Am I correct? I
don't know. I don't know that. He was a Republican. He was a very moderate Republican who was really pretty much a Democrat.
So
in the end.
Yeah, I always say, well, yeah, at this point, I don't even know what that means, but
thank you, Janet. Janet's been talking to us, and we've been missing you, Janet.
Yes, Janet overall.
Yes.
She said she felt it was a wrong move, but I don't know politics. We also have G Money Hollywood. He said, let's be real, sports should be separated. Women and men are not built the same, and there is no way that they can physically compete with each other. There is a major imbalance. The genetic code is what it is.
I think that's right.
That's what I inferred. Mr. Duckett says Republicans saw a wedge issue and hammered it home. They gave voters a reason to vote for a blatant racist instead of a woman. Wow. You guys,
I don't think it was a woman. I think it was the time and the place, and it was everything. It was the Joe Biden trick that they pulled on the American people, and then she was thrust in that position. She was, whether you like her or hate her, whatever the position is, it wasn't fair to her either. Nobody's saying she took the role. She had 100 days to run for president, and she was thrust into that disaster. It's not really her fault. I don't think it has anything to do with her being a woman. I think it has to do more with everything else in the party, and it's unfortunate for her. I just don't think it was fair to her.
We're going to shoot to break, and we're going to come back to Detroit in Black and White, our mid-weeks edition.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses and neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. Homeowners.
We're back, Detroit in Black and White, our midweeks edition. We're back with Esai Al, Jim Nardone, and myself. We have so much that we want to talk about. Mr. 1213 hits on something that I had on my phone that I was going to mention today. What's going on over there at that building, Leland building, where the people were believed that they were going to be evicted because of the DTE energy bill was so high. I think it was $43,000. They filed bankruptcy, thought they were going to get financing. It fell through. So they sent them a notice and said you had to get out by, it was supposed to be today. But now they have a 1-day reprieve because they were able to get financing. I'm going to say this. People that are living there, they're living there because when we talk about affordability, that's what we're talking about. They're not paying much in rent. I'm shocked that that building is still operable. That building is raggedy as HE double hockey sticks. And I'm not saying anything about the people who live there because people have to have somewhere to live. But how in the heck can the city support somebody having a building like that that is so raggedy? It shouldn't even be habitable as far as I'm concerned. Have you guys been over there at all?
Not in a long time.
And you haven't been a long time. Why?
Last time I was there was probably way back in the day when they were having these clubbing things going on there, and you go, and it was a cool spot. But it's a weird building. I mean, the restaurant there, what is it, Lucy and Ethel's, was just it was weird. I mean, it was an amazingly great spot. It could have been an amazingly cool hip diner, and instead it was just kind of like a trashy little joint. I didn't understand that place.
I don't understand it. It's downtown. It's right over there where you can see DTE from there, but it's right over there where AT&T, Michigan Bell back in the day was. That place is raggedy. I don't know what. I'm gonna tell you my experience there. No, I didn't eat in that restaurant, but I had two experiences there. One, my deceased uncle lived there, and I understand why he had to, why he lived there, and he could afford it, and he was part of this community that we just talked about, LBGTQ community. And so he could afford to live there. So of course I had to go there, and it was raggedy then. This was in the 90s. So then let's go into the 2000s. Doing probate work, I had to go visit someone because there was a petition for a guardianship. And so as the guardian ad litem, that the person I was appointed as the guardian ad litem, they were there. And I'm telling you, the place was raggedy. I mean, it was raggedy as AF. Okay. I had to whenever I would go visit, I would always tell people where I'm going. I'll give them an address and tell them to call my phone. But I'm shocked that people were still living in that place. I'm glad that they didn't have to get out in a moment's notice, but realistically, they need to go somewhere else. And when you talk about affordable housing, not just affordable housing, you need housing that is habitable as far as I'm concerned. I'm surprised that the city has not done anything about that building. It's horrible.
To me, the tragedy is that people have to, they're being evicted in such short notice. That's really the crime there, is that, I mean, you should have at least 30, 60 days notice, but to have like, okay, 2 days, everyone get, pack up and leave to where?
So now that they have a reprieve, right, and they think they have this funding and they'll be able to pay the bill. What else are you going to do to that building? Because people deserve to live somewhere that's decent. I understand that they live in downtown, which is great, but no, that building, that ain't it. And I think that our people that are in leadership have greatly failed people. I'm sorry. That is terrible. Now, it was something else that you talked about earlier. You mentioned a group of people earlier, Allan, and I want to ask you about this. Two things you talked about. One, Jim, you mentioned Kamala Harris. And two, you mentioned the Somalians. And three, I'm going to mention what's going on in Minnesota. What are y'all thoughts about that? I read an article where they said that people in Minnesota tweeted, text, got in contact, tried to get in contact with the then vice president, tried to warn her not to pick Waltz as her running mate for a vice president for the United States, to be the vice president of the United States, that they got this big fraud scheme and all of these Somalians have taken all this money. And now you have the Department of Justice investigating this. What do you guys think about it? I saw a little snippet of an interview with Tim Waltz. What do you think about it? People seem to be outraged that he's, basically it's like, this is just a small number of people, basically trying to blow it off. That's how people perceive it.
Yeah.
Allan?
I think, look, there's a lot of good Somalian people there who are doctors and teachers and school principals there. I think there's a community there. I think what's criminal is to paint a broad brush for the whole community. Are there some Somalian gangs? There's a few gangs there. Has there been some fraud perpetrated on the government in government programs? Yes, but that's not like, it's happened with some people. But look, we could find that in any group of people and say, oh, they've defrauded the government. Do we paint that broad brush? I just think it's really disgraceful. And Trump acts like it's his country. It's our country. This country was built on immigration. There's a lot of great Somalian people, and to paint that broad brush like that, I think it's really dangerous. Are there criminals in the Somalian community? Yes. Are there criminals in every community? In the Black community, in the Jewish community, in the Muslim community? There are always some, people committing crimes, but is that representative of the whole? I think it's disgraceful to paint such a broad brush. That's my feeling.
Jim?
And I was in Minneapolis for the first time this past year, and I thought it was a great town. And the homies, they lived in Minnesota in 2014, and Somalis make Minnesota what it is. They're the spine of the city, and this is, I had a conversation last night about the Somali people in Maine, up in Lewiston and Portland, and the information I received. This is the problem with information. It was completely inaccurate. All right. So I came home last night after a meeting and I did all this research, and it was completely inaccurate. Just about everything that I heard was wrong. Right. That all they're doing is the Somalis are laying around and making new Somalis and all that. That's just completely inaccurate. Right. When they decided to go to Maine, there was 10,000, and today there's about 8,000 Somalis in Maine. So everything that I was told, everything that was the propaganda was completely wrong. So St. Paul, Minnesota is beautiful. I agreed to homie. It's a cool town. Janet Overall says the YMCA on Clark has been vacant forever. I remember that YMCA across from the park. Edward Alt, the problem with the Leland house is that the landlord didn't have the funds and bring it up to code. Detroit has a couple class action lawsuits on solar panel programs to homie. Mr. 1213, he thought Mary Sheffield, the mayor-elect, had a program for the tenants over there. They might be waiting for a while. G Money talks about Hill Harper again. Very disappointed because I thought he was a great guy. I thought he could have been a really good representative for people, regardless of who he represented.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a comment. Go ahead. Is there somebody else?
Just a couple more because there was they didn't give the American people we're talking about, the vice president, the former vice president, the opportunities to vote for who we wanted for the position. She's a joke. There was a comment, David Porter, that's BS. Mr. Porter, I am not talking about her campaign. I'm talking about the position she was thrust in the campaign. You know, you can't run for president in 3 months. It just didn't work. All right. Was she confused? Was she taking advice from the wrong? All those things are probably accurate, right? She didn't stand up and say, now I'm in charge, you know, and I can fix this and I have my own way. All those things are right, Mr. Porter. I agree with you, but I'm merely talking about what she was thrust into. It was a difficult position. So that's just my take. I could be completely wrong. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, one of our viewers sent a text, and this is in reference to the Somalians in Minnesota. Mr. Evans, he takes issue with the fact that he says that there are people that are stealing billions of dollars in Minnesota, and they're not doing anything about it. But he points out that you had people, in particular Black rappers in Atlanta, and they ended up locked up. And his point is that they act like it didn't happen in Minnesota, but they locked the Black people up in different parts of the United States, and particularly Atlanta, for doing the same thing, which is fraud. So that's
I'm a little skeptical that nothing's being done. And I mean, I think I'd have to research that more to say that, you know, they're ignoring it. I mean, when people are, you know, look, there are doctors here, you know, there are so many doctors who commit Medicare fraud, and so many of them get away with it because there's not enough investigators and stuff. I don't know what the situation is there, but I find it hard to believe that they just turn their head and say, it's the Somalians, let them steal from the government.
right.
I don't think that's happening.
Yeah,
And we don't know if any of that's accurate yet. We're just hearing this information.
right. And that is what they're saying. And basically, they're blaming the governor, Tim Walz, for it. But the fact of the matter that there's an investigation going on, that tells me that there's investigations going on, that something is being done. And we all know that the government, the federal government, moves very slow, right? So it'll be a while before we see anything to happen that happens of this. G Money Hollywood says there's a little over 88,000 Somalians that live in Minnesota that is hands down predominantly white. How can they be a real threat? Make it make sense.
The same is up in Maine. Lewiston, Maine was 99% white. Now it's almost 80% white. So it's just a small group. It's a city of 38,000 people, and there's 8,000 Somalis. How are they wrecking your? It's propaganda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's called scapegoating.
Right.
You know?
I agree
it's
with
still
both
propaganda.
of you guys.
It's inaccurate.
I agree with you, but I thought it was pretty interesting, and I think it's very interesting that our viewers are hitting on some of the things that I had planned on bringing up some of these things, and it just organically grew out of our conversation, which is awesome. Ms. Sheila is talking about the former Vice President Kamala Harris. She says she's saying that she should have taken over when she was nominated. She says that Biden was incompetent then. She said Biden was doing, she's saying that VP Harris said that Biden was doing a great job, and that was wrong in real life. I would say to Ms. Sheila, I found it quite interesting that he was "Oh, Joe, he is so great. I just love you, Joe." And then
What was she supposed to say? He was the
I
boss.
said she wasn't supposed to say it. I said I find it interesting. And then you write a book and you dog his tail out. I mean, you dogged him out. I'm not buying the book. I didn't buy the book. I read some excerpts, and I mean that was enough. But that is again another example. You saying one thing because you want to get elected in office, but the reality is something else. That is a problem.
She should have never said, I have no problem with anything that he did.
Right.
She should not have done it. That was probably
Right.
her biggest mistake, to say,
Right.
I can't think of anything that I would have done differently.
Right.
That's sent a
Why you
message.
run for president? Because you want to do things, you want to improve. You could say, did a lot of good things, but I've got a lot of other things I can see improvement.
She could have distinguished herself.
She
right.
was, it took her, I thought the last month she finally sort of caught on, but before that, some of her answers to questions during interviews, she was so paranoid, and she was always worried that that little slip up was going to end up as a commercial against her, and as a result, she did not always respond well in interviews. You know,
She was probably not prepared to be vice president,
Right.
right?
Well,
Much less president.
Right.
But she wasn't going to say no either.
Right. We have to give Eric credit because he's absolutely correct. She was never nominated, which was an issue I had with the whole process. She was never nominated, and he's absolutely correct. Um, the homie says the Somalis got here because Reagan helped displace the Al Shabaab regime during the Mogadishu War. And David Porter says that book is the end of her political career. Janice says she's not buying the book either. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And Sheila says she wasn't transparent. Well,
Agreed.
yeah, I totally agree. And when the book came out, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Why? Why?" And now she's out campaigning for Democrats, and I don't know how much of an impact she will have on elections in terms of people supporting the Democratic candidate, because there are people who feel like she wasn't transparent. You want us to trust what you're saying about this person? Yeah, lady, go ahead and kick rocks. I mean, that is how some people feel.
you know what? But let me just play a little bit. And I don't want to do a what about, but we talk about transparent. When Trump was accused in the 2025 plan, whatever that was, he said, "I don't know anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about," and I'm totally against it. And then he appointed all these people from that plan. The plan has been followed right to the T, and so what we got was somebody even less transparent, I think. So
Right. I don't disagree with you. Terry McCrimmon says that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans, MAGA. Democrats try and be so righteous, and their base judges them on it. Republicans don't care what says or does. They will support him over any Democrat.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But he's a lame duck. So
I
the
think
Democrats aren't treating him like a lame duck.
Right.
The Democrats are very hard on their own and try to be righteous, and the Republicans are like, who cares? You know what? We just want to win. Screw you.
G Money Hollywood, or Eric agrees with David Porter. G Money Hollywood says that's what politicians do. Do you really think the current president and VP really like each other? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It's the prospective parties that makes the selection.
I agree with that.
Karen Winston. Good evening, Karen.
Hey,
She
Karen.
says, I couldn't vote for her. Just being a Black female wasn't enough for me. Sorry. Mr. 1213 says Vice President Harris, even given 6 months to run against Trump, would have still lost against him. She probably was a great AG, but would not have been a good president.
And I think that's a good point. She probably still would have lost. However, she was still thrust into a 90-day presidential election.
Right. And Miss Sheila said he tricked the American people also. So
I think Biden, I mean, I think it came to a head during the debate. I remember in the first 5 minutes, I was saying to myself, is Biden doing as badly as I thought? and I'm on a group thread with about 11 people, and one of them said, "It's over. He's done," and it was pretty much that was it. He couldn't hide it anymore. I mean, the problem was during the State of the Union address, he was sharp and he was combative and he was, had energy, but he looked like a bumbling old dude during that debate, and that debate was like cringeworthy.
Hey, Dorian, you're not late. You're just a couple minutes late, but we're glad you're here. You're right, Allan. You're absolutely right. George Clooney decided who was going to be the next president, I guess. I don't know.
Hilarious. You're hilarious. And people were, wait a minute, they blamed George Clooney. They said that he should have done that. They also talked about the former president of the United States, Barack Obama,
Yeah.
that he put George Clooney up to it. Listen, we so past that now, right?
Well, but it was a problem.
Yep, it was a problem, but it's in our rearview mirror now. Now we're looking at what's going on in front of us, and you have people now beating up on the Somalians. That's basically what we're talking about.
Like,
and it's inaccurate. I have trouble.
Trump is, in Ohio, when he started talking about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that created a hardship for Haitians who went to that community to work, who were needed workers in there, and they were demonized by Trump. We've never had a president who has clearly picked out minorities and tried to demonize them, and it works with some people.
But that came from a kernel, as our former city attorney used to always say, there's a kernel of truth. So some lady ate a cat in Ohio, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't. She was mentally ill. She did.
And it gave them an opportunity. And because nobody tells the truth, the press doesn't tell the truth, the BBC doesn't tell the truth, the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times or the Detroit News, none of them tell the truth. So it's who you believe.
Well, what are you saying, Jim? Are you saying that nothing you read is truthful in any of those publications?
Let's just say this. The newspapers that we read as young people are now more editorial pages than news pages. I'll just say that.
I wouldn't say that. I read the news in the free press. I don't see like planted, We don't
have time, but on Friday we're going to talk about that because I want to compare Charlie LaDuff's position on ICE to Ayanna Pressley's.
Compare his position on
Charlie's editorial. I mean, his is editorial stuff. He's an opinion maker. Look, Charlie went before the city council and advocated on behalf of them. I mean, Charlie's a different kind of journalist.
I agree. I think Charlie is
he's a columnist,
supporter of public employees, and he has been. He's favorable. He is more. What's the word I want to use? He gives public employees and union employees, whether it's police officers or firefighters or General Motors employees, he gives them the benefit of the doubt. And,
so I'm going to take this last comment because we didn't address her comment. Duela Boyce asked, will we be in the situations we are now facing if Kamala had won? And so I don't know what particular situation. I think she's talking about all situations, but what do you say, Allan? What do you say, Jim? And I will make my last comment because it is 9:29. So
I would say this. I mean, we'd be in different situations. We don't know how things would have transpired. But what I would say is, and this is my maybe biased opinion, but I think it's an objective opinion. I think we would have the Justice Department, the FBI. I think we would have more integrity in the system. Not that there aren't flaws, not that there aren't some biases there, but I think what we're seeing now is 5,000 people from the Justice Department who have left. Hundreds of FBI agents have been pushed out or whatever. I find it, and the pardoning of the Honduras president, ex-president, the pardoning of a scamster who scammed 10,000 investors, I think the pardoning of people who beat up cops, assaulted cops on January 6th, I don't think we'd see this wholesale dismantling of the justice system. That's
Jim,
my
what do you think?
What I think is Miss Sheila. It's not all about Donald Trump. It's about Miss Sheila, Karen Winston. She's right. Give me substance over charisma. Mr. 1213 Dahomey. There was another one, Karen Winston, which I want to touch on. Act Blue donations are scandalous. Don't give Act Blue or Act Red or any of those people
I was
money.
hoping we would get a chance to talk about
Go
that.
ahead.
We'll talk about it on Friday.
Write a check.
What,
Write a
Dwayne?
check if you want to give somebody
Right,
money.
Joella, you said, will we be in the situations we're now facing if Kamala had won? I will say that some situations, absolutely, we would be in. Inflation is one of them. It existed when Biden was in office, but some situations not. I think the situations will be different. But
I agree.
we have situations. With that being said, it's 9:31. Listen, nobody want to use the QR code. Maybe they scared.
We can still see them. We can see them. I can see all those people
Don't
out
be
there.
scared. Don't be scared. We want you to join us on Friday. Mr. Evans, do use the QR code and come on the show on Friday.
And there's Orgs. Thanks for tuning in.
Orgs, Derek Henry, Dahomey, all of you guys, Karen, Miss Sheila,
G-Money, Eric.
Absolutely.
You guys aren't shy. Eric,
Right.
Dominique, you guys aren't shy. Miss Sheila, come on.
So we will see you guys Friday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you. We'll see you again this Friday evening at 8:30 p.m. Bye.